My brother's wedding, where his bride is also a model and influencer. The bride called me up to the stage and said this.
Even though she's older than me, she still can't get married. So today, I thought I'd share some of my happiness with her. But really, how come her brother is a brilliant doctor and his sister is ugly and uneducated? Why?
She spoke all at once, then looked around the room with a giggle, as if expecting a burst of laughter. However, contrary to her expectations, the room remained silent.
Huh? This is the part where you laugh, right? My why is cute, isn't it?
Just as she said that, my brother's colleagues from the hospital began to murmur in unison. They started criticizing her, saying that's too much, and apologize.
What? What's this?
The bride looked panicked, as if she didn't understand what was happening. My brother was standing behind her, holding his head down, covering his eyes. I whispered to the bride in a low voice, "Oh dear, you've really done it now." After this, the foolish bride of my brother lost everything. My name is Sally Field, 31 years old. My family consists of my father, an office worker, my mother, a registered dietitian, and my brother Kenneth, who is 3 years older than me. We live a peaceful life now, but there were tough times. When I was a high school sophomore, and my brother had just started his dream of attending medical school, my father fell ill. It took several years for him to fully recover. The family was deeply shocked. My mother often had to take leave from work to care for him, and with my father's income gone, the cost of hospitalization and treatment strained our finances, especially with my brother's expensive tuition. One day during my senior year of high school, I spoke to my mother, who was struggling with the household budget. "Mom, I've decided to work after graduating from high school."
What? But Sally, don't you want to go to college too?
I did, but it's fine. Dad's treatment and Kenneth's tuition are expensive, right? I'm not as good a student as Kenneth, but I want to help you. My parents apologized to me repeatedly, saying, "We're sorry for being so helpless." My brother, on the other hand, said, "If Sally has to give up college, I'll drop out of medical school." But I calmed him down. So, I gave up on going to college. Even so, I have never regretted that decision. At the time, it was the only choice. After high school, I started working in accounting for a small company. Fortunately, everyone at work was kind, and I found my job fulfilling. It's been a little over 12 years since then. My brother graduated from medical school and now works as a surgeon at a large general hospital. My father's illness has been completely cured. He found a new job, and my parents' relationship is good. As for me, my life changed dramatically over these 12 years. It was in my second year of working. A senior colleague said to me,
"Hey, are you interested in investing?"
"Investing? What do you mean?" This colleague had been working and investing on the side, and he had accumulated enough wealth to quit his job. At that time, I didn't have much money, and I listened to him and started investing little by little with my savings. Until then, I thought I was just a plain, tall, average-looking person with average grades. But surprisingly, I seemed to have a talent for investing. My assets gradually increased, and by my late 20s, my savings had reached 8 figures. I became fascinated with the depth of investing and amicably left the company I had worked for nearly a decade. I also got certified as a financial planner, and while growing my own assets, I began giving investment seminars for young people. Still, since I spent my days working from home on my computer, I only told my family that I had started remote work. One day, after one of my investment seminars, a participant invited me.
Would you like to go out for a meal? Just the two of us?
What? Surprised, I saw him looking embarrassed.
I'm sorry if this is too forward, but I really like you, Sally.
This was how I met George, who would later become my boyfriend. He had a respectable job and didn't approach me for my money. He said he liked tall women and was immediately smitten with my 5 feet 8 inches tall, which sounded unbelievable. I'm not particularly attractive, so I was cautious at first, but George was always kind and gentlemanly. Gradually, I opened up to him, and we started dating. I hadn't told my family yet because it felt a bit awkward, but I was seeing him with an eye toward the future. One day, my brother told me, "I want you to meet someone I want to marry." My parents and I were shocked. We had never heard him talk about dating anyone before. He was always focused on his studies and work. My shy brother getting married. Our family congratulated him and eagerly anticipated meeting his fiancée. The day to meet her finally arrived. I returned home for the occasion.
Hi there, I'm Eliza Taylor.
I was taken aback. Wait a second, is this the model Eliza?
Yes, actually, that's right. We met through a colleague, and she's a model.
Yes. My brother's fiancée was a popular, active model. She shared her private life on social media and was also an influencer. I had seen Eliza on social media more than once. She was from a world far removed from mine, sparkling and glamorous. And she was going to marry my brother. Our family welcomed Eliza with some nervousness. She was energetic and cheerfully engaged me in conversation.
What kind of work do you do?
Oh, I live alone and work from home.
Really? Like a shut-in. That sounds so gloomy. I can't imagine working like that.
I could understand how a model might think that way. While I forced a smile, Eliza continued.
I graduated from a Solace Academy. Being Kenneth's sister, you must have gone to an even better school, right?
Oh, well, I didn't go to college. When I answered a bit awkwardly, Eliza's eyes widened in surprise.
Really? But Kenneth's parents both graduated from college, right? Are you the only one who didn't?
Seeing my dad about to say something, I interrupted. That's right, but because I made that choice, I am where I am today.
Is that so?
Eliza replied nonchalantly. The atmosphere got a bit awkward for a moment, but soon the conversation became more pleasant, and the meeting ended on a good note. At that time, I naively thought, I'm glad Kenneth looks happy. Later, I received news from Kenneth that he would have the wedding in 6 months. Apparently, they planned to register the marriage after the ceremony. I casually mentioned this to my boyfriend, George. My brother is getting married. Can you believe it? His fiancée is a famous model.
That's great news. Speaking of which, there's something I want to tell you.
What?
Sally, would you seriously consider marrying me?
George, looking nervous, presented me with a ring with a large stone. It was our anniversary that day. I never expected to be proposed to. Surprised, I accepted the ring with a smile. Since my busy brother and I couldn't coordinate our schedules, I introduced George to my parents first. They were delighted and congratulated me on the unexpected news.
You've caught a wonderful person, Sally.
My dad's words made me smile. We decided to have our wedding after my brother's wedding. George's parents also warmly welcomed me. His father, Jimmy, took an interest in my work and said,
"Could you hold an investment seminar for my acquaintances? Of course, you'll be well compensated."
"Is it really okay for me to do it?"
I heard George has significantly increased his assets since you taught him. I'm interested as well, so please do it.
I accepted with a smile, and we spent a pleasant time at my in-laws' house. Later, from a conversation between George and his parents, I discovered something, but I kept it to myself. Time passed, and the day before my brother's wedding arrived. Kenneth came back home, so I returned too, and we spent his last night as a single man together as a family. During dinner, I told my brother something. His eyes widened in surprise.
Sally, I heard about you getting married, but is it true?
Yes, but please keep it a secret for now.
Got it. Anyway, let's focus on tomorrow's wedding.
I nodded and toasted with my brother. The next day, my brother and Eliza's wedding arrived. Dressed in formal attire, I went to the venue with my parents. Since Eliza was a model and an influencer as well, the guests were flashy. I recognized many faces from social media and magazines. I realized once again that my brother was marrying a celebrity. During the chapel ceremony, I clapped as hard as I could for the two of them, filled with celebratory feelings. As expected from a model, Eliza looked stunning in her wedding dress and carried herself with grace. The reception began after we moved to the venue. There were speeches from the hospital director where my brother worked and performances by friends, and the event proceeded smoothly while I enjoyed my meal and watched. Then came the bouquet presentation event from the bride. The MC announced loudly over the microphone.
The person the bride wants to give the bouquet to is the groom's sister, Sally.
I was startled by this sudden announcement. Eliza giving me the bouquet. What was this about? Confused, I walked towards them, and Eliza greeted me with a beaming smile. Under everyone's gaze, Eliza took the microphone and said,
The main reason I want to give the bouquet to Sally is because she's still single.
What? All eyes were on us. Eliza continued,
This person is a shut-in with no opportunities to meet anyone, so even though she's older than me, she can't get married. So today, I thought I'd share some of my happiness with her.
The MC's face froze at her words. The room fell silent, with only the background music playing. I stared at Eliza, wide-eyed.
Besides, her brother Kenneth is a brilliant doctor, but his sister is ugly and uneducated. Why?
She spoke quickly, then looked around the room with a giggle. as if expecting a burst of laughter. But contrary to her expectations, the room remained dead silent.
Huh? This is the part where you laugh, right? My why is cute, isn't it?
Just as Eliza said that, my brother's colleagues from the hospital started murmuring in unison. They began criticizing her, saying that's too much, and apologize.
What's this?
Eliza looked panicked, not understanding what was happening. My brother, standing behind her, covered his eyes and hung his head. I whispered to her in a low voice, "Oh dear, you've really done it now."
What? Why are the guests angry just because I insulted you? You're just an ugly, uneducated woman.
At that moment, my patience reached its limit. Just as I was about to speak out in anger, my brother muttered,
Sally's fiance is the son of the director at my workplace. That means her fiance is the next director of the general hospital.
What?
"Yes. My fiance, George's father, was actually the director of the hospital where my brother worked. This means that Jimmy, who is now my father-in-law, is the top person here. George, his son, is also a doctor. He works in a different department from my brother, so they usually don't interact much. At the seminar that Jimmy asked me to lead the other day, I was there as George's fiancée. The guests who criticized Eliza earlier, the vice director, the head of the surgery department, and others all know that I'm related to the director. They affectionately call me teacher." Just then, George, who was also invited as a guest, rushed over to me.
Sally, are you okay? It was so awful what she said.
"George, I'm fine." Seeing our interaction, Eliza turned pale.
What is this? How can this be?
Then the director, no, Jimmy, walked over to her.
Eliza, wasn't it? You've said quite a lot about my daughter-in-law in front of everyone.
Eek. No, that's not what I meant.
Eliza tried to explain, but Jimmy ignored her and turned to my brother.
Kenneth, you are one of our best and brightest, so continue working with us. But let me give you some advice as someone more experienced in life. Choose your partner wisely. It can affect your career.
Yes, sir.
My brother replied nervously, and Jimmy smiled at me.
Sally, we are very happy about your engagement to George. So are all the guests here today. Come visit us again soon.
Moved by Jimmy's kind words, I expressed my gratitude with tears in my eyes. With that, Jimmy left the scene. Eliza stood there in shock. My brother then took the microphone and addressed the remaining guests.
Thank you all for coming today. However, I intend to call off this wedding. I will return the gifts at a later date, so please leave for now.
What? Calling off the wedding? No way.
Eliza screamed at my brother, but he sternly replied,
I can't marry someone who openly insults my only precious sister, the one who sacrificed her own dreams to put me through medical school. What's this why nonsense?
Wait, I'll apologize. Let's continue the wedding.
I will never forgive you. No matter what, I'm canceling this engagement.
With those words, the guests began to stand up and leave. Eliza, in her wedding dress, was being filmed by her own guests on their phones.
Stop it. What is this? What about my status as a doctor's wife?
With a smile, and while being held by George, I said, Aren't you glad you don't have to be related to an ugly and uneducated me? By the way, why is this wedding of a popular model ending up like this? Why? Hearing my words, Eliza rolled her eyes and screamed, "Eek!" stomping her feet in frustration. Glancing at her pitiful figure, I left the venue with George and my brother. As my brother declared, he officially broke off the engagement with Eliza later on. Eliza held out until the last moment, but when a lawyer got involved, it was settled that Eliza would bear all the costs of the wedding. Since it was such a grand ceremony, the expenses were quite high, and Eliza's savings were completely depleted. She already had a habit of overspending, so she didn't have much in savings. Eliza's parents, who witnessed the whole ordeal, were furious and cut ties with her. Furthermore, her influencer friends at the event spread the story on social media, causing her reputation to plummet and her follower count to drop drastically. Eventually, she became infamous as the YY Blunder Woman, known as a model with a terrible personality. As a result, she lost all her work as both a model and an influencer. Now, Eliza lives in a cheap apartment and works night jobs. It must be a huge blow to her pride, but I feel no sympathy. In fact, I only think serves her right. As for me, I married George successfully, and we're living a happy married life while I continue working. My in-laws and my husband's colleagues treat me very well, for which I am extremely grateful. The guests from that day have also thanked me, saying they were able to increase their assets thanks to the seminar. I intend to keep moving forward positively with the important people in my life, without any shame.